Welcome to Man on the Mic, a place for honest conversations about faith, fitness, family, business, and becoming the person you're called to be. Here, we slow down, ask better questions, and talk with people who are building meaningful lives from the inside out. My hope is simple, that something you hear today gives you clarity, courage, and the push to take your next step. Let's dive in. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Man on the Mic. Super excited to dive in today. I have one of my dear friends, and I am super excited for today's episode because we are going to talk about relationships, about dating, about life, and about weirdos. So tune in and let's have some fun. This is my friend Olivia, and I'm going to let her, or Liv as she likes to go by, introduce herself to you guys.
Hey, I'm Liv. I met Jeff, how long ago did we meet? Not that long ago.
2 weeks? 3 weeks.
Yeah, not that long ago. But yeah, I just grew up from Utah, so very exotic of me to still be in Utah. But I just started a podcast a couple months ago called 20-something.
Okay.
And I think that's how we connected.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it was a fun podcast.
Yeah, it was fun.
Hello.
I know. Stay tuned. That will come out in probably a couple weeks. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And I guess the first question I want to ask you is, if you were to say, this is who I am to the world, what would that be?
What a good question. You know, I feel like a few years ago when I was focusing a lot on that question of like the core pillars of like identity of what I want to be known as. And like I'm a religious person. And so I think like number one for me, I would hope that like the way that I portray myself, the way that I act is always as like a daughter of God. And then secondly, I think it comes down to like my family being like, you know, a daughter, a sister, an aunt as of late, which is so fun.
Congrats.
And then I think third would be like my goal through my podcast, and I think just like my purpose of what I try to do in life is help people feel like one, less alone, and two, know that like the hard things that happen to us in life and the way that, you know, we all have this map of our life, and when it doesn't pan out like we think, that actually is a really good thing.
Yeah.
And kind of can become like, I know it sounds cheesy, but almost like your superpower of how you connect and help others. So
Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm super interested because I know a lot of times when we want to help people, it's because we've gone through something ourselves.
Yeah.
And so my question for you is, was there ever a time in your life that you felt alone?
Yesterday. But
Okay, let's dive into that a little bit.
I think like a few years ago especially was the first time in my life that I ever really felt that way. And I was very ill prepared for it, I think. And that is a big driving force behind why I'm trying to do what I do, because I think when I was in that time of my life, like I was searching for someone who could tell me like, oh, I was in that place and I made it out, you know? So
what did you do in that situation?
I don't know. It was a mess, I think, honestly. It was honestly a lot of survival, I think, day to day. And I owe so much to my family and friends who I think dragged me out of that place.
I love that. That's the beautiful thing about having the right friends in your life and having your family around you, because they can help you when you're struggling. There are people that you can reach out to. And so I'd love to know, for someone watching or listening to this podcast that is feeling alone, what is your message to them? I
would say be vulnerable in expressing that to your family and friends. My friends joke with me all the time that I like get the Grammy or the like ultimate award in being able to put a face on, which is not like a good thing to be good at. But I think ever since I was a little girl, I just always have been taught this mentality of, and it's not by my parents, I think it's something that I just reaffirm to myself, that it's like when you're struggling, you have to put on a face that you're fine about 10 times harder. Yeah. And so I think I really struggled in that place for a really, really long time, longer than I needed to, because I didn't want to burden anyone. I didn't want to go to my family and friends and kind of put voice to what was going on, because then it was almost like admitting to myself like, oh, I really, really am struggling. Yeah. But once I did that, like I think there's a lot of comfort in knowing like you don't always have to have all the tools to get through a hard time in your life, nor do I think you're meant to have all the tools.
Yeah.
I think that the people around you provide a lot of that as well.
Okay. And apart from family and friends, how has your relationship with God and with Jesus helped you when you're alone?
You know, I remember this one day I was in college and I had just gotten out of a 4-year relationship and my dad had just gotten sick. Like it was, everything had kind of like crumbled down, in that moment. And I remember sitting on my bathroom floor, just like crying and crying and crying. And I truly felt like I had nobody else like in the whole wide world. And I literally said out loud, I was like, okay, like Heavenly Father, it is just you and me. And I think that time in my life, even though that was probably one of the lowest times I've ever been, looking back, I'm so grateful for that moment because I think it took my relationship with God, Heavenly Father, you know, that higher power, from this kind of distant relationship of like, oh yeah, I say my prayers and I ask for things and I say that I'm grateful, to something where it was like, okay, we have to walk together every single day.
Yeah.
Or I'm not going to make it through this.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that time because I think that now that things are not as hard as they were then, I can still take a relationship that's a lot closer and like try to build on that every day.
That's beautiful. One of the things I always tell people is when I die, I want God to recognize my voice from the conversations I had with him when I was here on earth.
Oh, I love that.
And I think for me, it's about understanding I don't always have to go to God when I need something, but I can just go to him when I'm thankful.
Yeah.
Or when I had a good day, or when I want to celebrate something, because that is your Father who's wanting to celebrate with you and wants to see what's best for you. And he's always there, but he's waiting for us to come to him.
Yes, I love that. And I remember someone saying to me one time, like, we can treat God as a genie. And I remember hearing that and being like, nah, I don't do that. But then as I think about my prayers sometimes, when I would ask for things and then I feel like they wouldn't happen and I was waiting for years and years, and I would get super frustrated and feel like, well, I guess I'm forgotten. I guess I'm alone. I guess my prayers like are hitting the ceiling. I think that the sentiment you just expressed of gratitude is so important because that's just like relationship building. Yeah. And I think our prayers and our outlook on life gets so much stronger and better when we approach prayer as like a tool for relationship building versus a genie, which like, of course I still ask for things and I still am hopeful for things, but I don't base my faith and relationship with him as much as in outcomes.
Yeah.
I think as I used to, which is hard.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. How do you balance when you do ask for something and you don't receive it?
I'm like, man, I'm doing that literally today, every day. I think it's maybe goes back to what I just said. Like I try to remember that God ultimately has like our best interest at heart.
Yeah.
And he wants the best for us. And it's trusting him and trusting his way instead of wanting mine more.
Yeah.
But I think that's a decision you have to make every day. And it's not fun a lot of days.
It's not.
We've talked about that.
Yeah.
Like it's hard.
But it goes back to having faith and believing in something that you can't see and you don't know at present, but you believe that it's possible and it can happen.
Yeah.
And I think, in fact, I shared this with a friend this morning who's going through a hard time. See if I can find it and read it. And part of it came to my mind because Elder Holland just passed. And let's see. One of the things, if you remember one of his talks, he said, don't you quit, you keep going. Mm-hmm. And I think that's crucial is we'll pray so hard and want something so bad and then it doesn't happen on our timetable. And then we give up and we quit. And what we need to realize is blessings may come today, tomorrow, next week, next year, or even in the next life. Yeah. But they will eventually come. And so it's having that faith that if this truly is my Father, then he will give it to me on his timetable.
That's beautiful. I love that quote. On the tangent of Elder Holland, such an amazing man, one of my favorite quotes from him is if for a while the harder you try, the harder it gets, take heart. So it has been with the best people that have ever lived.
Exactly.
And that's literally my screensaver right now because I think there is something beautiful in that where you're saying where it's like, it doesn't always get easier the second we try harder. But it's just trusting that those blessings, they will come, and that Heavenly Father's promises to us are always kept.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And one of the things I think we've talked about this on your podcast when we went to brunch is both of us are in a spot where we are older in Utah County.
It's like we're freaking grandparents in Utah County.
and unmarried.
Yeah.
And I'm curious for you and for the people listening and watching this, how has that affected your life?
I think that, and I've had a lot of friends express similar sentiments, but it's this weird tension of opposites, right? Where like you want something and it's a good, righteous desire, and so you don't have it. And then I think it can lead to kind of like these faith crises almost, where you're confused. And then it's also this weird counterbalance of like you want to be a partner, but then you're not. And so you feel this balance of like hyper self-independence. And I don't know. It's just tricky. I was at a family party for Christmas last week, and one of my uncles lives in California. And he was asking me about dating, and I was just like, made a joke, kind of like, being 27 in Utah County is essentially like being 97. And he was like, that is so funny because, and people say this all the time, but he's like, outside of Utah, like that is so foreign. He's like, I didn't start thinking about dating until I was 29.
Yeah.
Like living in Irvine.
Yeah.
And I think it's just about perspective, because I would so much rather like build into the kind of person that I want to be and find someone who's operating on that same frequency than get married at 20. And that works for some people. But if I had gotten married at 20, carnage. That would have been like, I was in no place.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, even 25. Like it really wasn't until this last year, I think turning 27, that I finally was like, okay, I think I could I could be an active partner in a relationship. I don't know. We're all on our own. And that doesn't necessarily make it easier, but I mean, we've talked about this where it's like, just because someone gets married at 21, 22, there's nothing wrong with you for dating into your later 20s or your early 30s.
Yeah.
Like, I think that takes the romance and like the magic out of relationships a little bit, when we feel this almost like sense of entitlement of, well, I should have been married by 25 and I'm not. So either something's wrong with me or something's wrong with everybody else.
Well, and I have a lot of friends who got married super young, right after we got off our missions, and are now single dads. Some are remarried. Some are, they just got divorced. They don't have kids. And it's because they rushed into it. Yeah. And they didn't take that time to work on themselves. And as they went through that process of finding themselves and getting into careers in life, it just didn't align.
Yeah.
And so it didn't end up working. This will not work if by the time this episode drops, you are in a relationship. But as we talked on your podcast, your dream date is a hot air balloon.
Doesn't that just sound kind of fun?
It sounds like a blast.
Yeah.
And gentlemen, if you're listening or watching this, Moab or Park City, you can rent a hot air balloon. The first guy to claim this, I will cover the date.
You do not need to do that.
I'm going to. We're going to send it. This is your year.
Then we have to double, and you have to come and bring a date.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll make it happen.
Maybe we got to wait till it's a little warmer outside, because it is
That's true.
freezing.
That's true. I mean, last week it was warm, and then suddenly it's actually winter.
I know.
The week after Christmas.
Rude of Utah.
So here's the question for you. What is your ideal partner?
I think I've broken it down. I feel like I get asked this question a lot. And so I went home one day and I had a big list. Someone had recommended that to me, write down all the things. And I think that's helpful. But for me, I was like, I need to condense this into, so I think it's 4 things. Okay. One, they need, I think since I'm just a spiritual person, I would really appreciate that they have a relationship with Jesus Christ and God. 2, someone who is inherently kind. Okay. There's nothing worse than being on a date and they're rude to the waiter or something like that. And I don't know. I'm not about that. 3, I think, is ambition and goals and drive. I myself, I think, am a very big dreamer, passionate, kind of ambitious person. And it's fun to feel like you're growing with someone together. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then 4 is service oriented and empathetic. So the relationship with their family, relationship with others, relationship with themselves. Obviously there's more things, but I think if I could tie it up with a bow, that's mine. Okay. What about you?
I think ambitious, independent, whereas in she can have her own life and I can have my own life, but also we can coexist together.
Yeah.
I think kind, willing to put up with my shortcomings and my weaknesses.
Yeah.
And then I think the last one is just active. And whether that's active spiritually, active physically, just wants to get out and do good in the world and move and take care of herself, is what I would say. What is your advice to girls out there who are struggling to find that person?
I would say, one, I think like grow into the kind of person that you want to attract. Like it's hard if you're, sitting at home every day and not doing anything and like just feeling sorry for yourself and not going out there and being all of these things that you list. So like we just did, kind of make a list of what you're looking for and then every day do something to be that. And then I think too, and I don't know if this is just Utah dating culture or universal, but I think that oftentimes when like it feels vulnerable, right? To be like, I want to like work towards marriage. I want to work towards a healthy relationship, or even just I want to work towards being a better person. And we can get caught saying like, I don't need that. I'm not looking for that. If I'm single forever, like I'll be fine, which still can be true. But I think that there's a lot of power in like opening the door to things that you want. So for example, I was listening to a podcast the other day and she was talking about, she was in her 50s and she had always wanted children, but she had never like voiced that ever. And so she was on a walk with one of her friends and her friend made a comment to her about how she had assumed that she had never wanted kids. And she said that she spoke out loud for the first time, being in her 50s, like, no, man, like kids is something that I've always wanted.
Yeah.
And her friend responded and was like, really? Because you have like never talked about that before. Yeah. And she was like, yeah, I've never said it out loud because it almost felt like if I didn't say it out loud and it didn't happen, that like the heartbreak of not having it, like you would mitigate it a little bit, right? But that's not true. Like even like things that we desire and hope for, even if you don't speak them, it's still really devastating when you don't have them. But she talked about the power in voicing that to her friend. It like opened the door in her mind and therefore in her life of like basically just saying to the universe and the world, like, no, that's something that I want. And then because of speaking that out, she ended up adopting 2 girls like with like later that year, I think she had said. Anyways, and that hit me really, really hard of, rather than trying to say all the time, like, I don't need that, I don't want that, marriage or whatever it is, there's a lot of power in being like, that's actually something that I want, that's something that I'm pursuing, because then you start acting like that. Yeah. And what's the worst that's going to happen, right? Like if you speak it out loud and it doesn't happen, your life doesn't change. You're in the same place. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of power in bravery of like being open about this is what I want. So whether that's like starting a business, becoming financially independent, getting out of debt, a relationship, I think manifesting is a bit of like a trigger word that can get overlooked because we say it so often, but there's a lot of power in just being like, that's something that I really want. And now I'm going to live like that's something that I want. That was a long-winded answer.
No, I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I would love to dig a little bit deeper, and I want to put you into a situation.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that this can help the girls out there that are listening to this. If you are a female and you're stuck on a super awkward date, you're uncomfortable, you want to leave, you don't know what to do, what would you tell them to do?
Yeah, I think like as a woman dating, it's hard, right? Because oftentimes it depends, but you don't drive. And so you're kind of stuck there. You can't, like you can fake something to get out of it sometimes if the date is going really awful, and sometimes that's necessary. But for me, I feel like it's just like have fun for yourself. Like, for example, I don't know if I've told you this story, but I was on a date probably like 6 months ago, and this guy was really, really just like not that nice of a person. I don't really know how else to state it. Like I've never been on a date before where I was really caught off guard by like their behavior and actions towards other people. Anyways, we were sitting down at dinner and it was this nicer restaurant, so it was like a longer dinner. And he started talking about how he really disliked one political affiliation. And it's a political affiliation that I don't lean as hard that way. But as he was just going on and on, it was like this really hateful language about this group of people. I was just sitting there and I was like, man, one, this is the worst day ever and I want to go home. But I was like, how could I make this like fun for me? So I pretended the whole dinner to like be the most diehard political affiliation that he hated. Yeah. And I just like rage baited him the whole time, which it was like funny, but I share that story in terms of like I got off that date and it was like just funny and silly. And I had
But you made fun of a hard situation.
Yeah, where it's like a lot of times you're going to go on dates and know pretty quickly that maybe that's not your match. But a lot of times those people are still really awesome people. And there's no harm in like having more friends. There's no harm in like understanding someone more. And so I often think that too. Like that story is one end of the spectrum. But on the other end, sometimes I'll think like, okay, even though I know this isn't my person, like I want to leave this date with them being like, man, I had a really good time and she was really kind. Because as a woman dating, like typically the man is, giving up their time and their money to invest on you and this time. And so you want to be respectful of that. And I think that if I can leave a date feeling like, okay, I think that he had fun and he had a good time, that's a win. Okay.
What is your concept? Because I've had girls yell at me in the past before in terms of the guy opening the door, the guy paying. I've had before, don't open the door for me. We're equal, or really? We can split the bill or different things. Yeah. How does that work for you?
I don't know if I feel super passionately one way about doors opening and things like that. I think I always appreciate it for sure when a man opens my door. But I do have friends, like as you're saying that, I'm like, I do have friends I think that feel very passionately on both sides of the spectrum. And I think it's just about communicating like what you're looking for and what you need. Oftentimes when I will chat with my girlfriends, I think girls will say things like that. And as a man, it's probably hard. You're like, well, this girl really likes me opening her door, but this girl hates it.
Yeah.
And this girl wants me to pay for the check, but that girl doesn't. Maybe just ask, because I think we can write people off fairly quickly where it's like, oh, well, he didn't open my door, so I'm done. Yeah. And it's like, well, did you tell him that you wanted him? Well, no, he should just know. Okay, but maybe he got yelled at 3 nights ago by a different girl opening her door.
Yeah.
And so I think if there's enough there, like if there's a spark, some kind of interest on your part, like just talk about it. You can even joke about it. Like sitting in the car as a girl being like, man, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this car because my door isn't just going to magically open. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like just kind of own it. Man, being a man dating must be hard. I think being a woman dating is hard, but it sounds like being a man dating is hard.
I think the hard thing is because we're dating in Utah.
Yeah.
So I think we're in a whole different element and bubble and culture, because my 2 best friends moved out of the state of Utah and the pressure of getting married and dating completely shifted for them. And at the time, one was in New York and then one was in Texas, is now in New Orleans. And it was just a different world. Now, my buddy in New Orleans is now engaged to a lady in Africa.
Whoa.
And that's a whole different ball game and tricky, and immigration lawyers and different things, and with the current state of things, trying to figure out how do I get her and her kid over to America. And that was a process. He called me because he just went through, have you heard of a dowry?
Yeah.
So he just went through the dowry and was thinking they'd ask for, 10 grand worth of things, and it ended up being 5 grand and stuff. But just that whole process of, okay, if you want to marry her, and the males in the family could ask for anything. Cars, chickens, cows, houses, whatever.
Fascinating, like different cultures and stuff.
And it was so interesting because one of the things he told me is I wanted to tell them, whatever you choose to charge me, I can either be a member of your family or just be an acquaintance. And so he kind of set the tone on how he wanted that interaction to be. And, they have to understand that, well, depending on what you do, if you want her to visit you guys every year, you're going to have a good relationship with him because he's going to be the one funding it and doing all of that. And it's interesting because the 3 of us, we've gone on many trips. One of us is white, one of us is Asian, one of us is black. Completely polar opposites. And we've always dated the opposite races.
No way.
which has been super interesting and fun. And so, when people see us, they're like, how do you guys know each other? It's like, we went to middle school, high school, and then college. They were at BYU. I was at UVU. We all lived in Provo next to each other, and we used to do the whole Denny's at midnight on Sunday because we weren't breaking the Sabbath, but we could still get that Denny's at midnight. So one of the things that we didn't talk on your podcast or we've ever talked about, I'm super curious, as someone who's gone through the route of going through college and going through school, do you feel when you look back now and you look at your career where you're at, do you feel like if you were starting right now, you'd still go to school?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, actually. Well, I played soccer at Utah State, and that was a really, I think, amazing, unique experience, like doing the student athlete thing. And so
She's a true Aggie, just letting you guys know.
I actually am not.
Oh, sorry, ultimate Aggie, my bad.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm actually not a true Aggie, which is crazy. The line was always so long. But you know what I actually feel more passionate about? So I went and did my MBA at the U. And my older brother, he just graduated from Wharton with his MBA, which is, at least last year, was the #1 MBA you could get in the United States. And so it was really interesting comparing our experiences.
Yeah.
You see all the time people who like are very successful in their careers and work and don't go to school. And I love school. Maybe that's like a hot take. I really like education. I really like all of that stuff. So would I go back and get my undergrad? Yes. Would I be a lot more careful about a master's degree? Yes. Because I just did my master's degree online. And I think, well, it was like kind of hybrid. And I think that there were so many things that like benefited my life from that. But it was interesting watching my brother's experience at like such a high-end school where obviously it was a lot more expensive, but his networking and his connections and everything like that catapulted in comparison to what mine did, whereas mine was kind of more just like, I think, checking off a box.
Okay.
So when people ask me about like master's degrees and if I recommend them or not, I think if I could go back, I would research a little bit more, like, is this degree actually going to change like my education? Is it actually going to change where I'm at?
Okay.
I don't know, because you can, like, school's expensive, you know? And I think that, like, playing soccer, I kind of, like, mitigated that and didn't really experience that until my master's degree. And student debt is hard and crazy. And I think that once you graduate and then it's like, okay, did that really change my career? It's like, well, you just got $50,000, $60,000 in debt to be in the same career.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to have a roadmap of, like, this is why I'm doing this. This is why. Because my brother, you know, I mean, he, like, going to an Ivy League like that is so expensive, but the payout can be so much better. Like, the job that he's in now is absolutely fantastic. So I think going back, I would have studied that out a little bit more.
Okay.
I'm really grateful for it, but it didn't really change much for me, I think, at the end of the day. That's maybe a hot take, but.
Once you stop playing college sports, do you miss that competitiveness and that competition and everything?
Oh, yeah.
Where do you find that now?
Well, I was in sales at Adobe for a while, and I think I found it there. But honestly, I think, and you probably share the sentiment a lot, like building a podcast, building something, chasing something.
Yeah.
I think mimics a lot of that, because I think we operate the best in like our rookie zones, like the zones where you're being pushed and you, like, your resources mean a lot more to you and you're growing and expanding and like trying and dreaming. Like, you operate a lot better in that. So, and obviously my like co-ed soccer league, it's very competitive.
Where do you play co-ed soccer at? Is it indoor?
Yeah.
Is it the Timp indoor?
Yeah, they have a Timp one, and then there's a Peaks one, and then there's one in Draper.
Jeez, you playing 3?
Not right now. I've played at all of them, but right now I'm just playing at Timp.
Okay.
But me and like all my old teammates will like all get together. And
who is your favorite soccer player of all time?
All time? That's a good question. Honestly, this is maybe kind of a hot take. Julie Ertz, she's retired, but she was on the U.S. women's national team.
Okay.
And I was a center back growing up, and she was a center back, and I just like idolized the way that she played.
Okay. Was there something about her personality that you also clicked with, or was it just the playing style?
You know, one of my favorite things in soccer, being a center back, was just like laying someone out, but in a way that you don't get fouled.
Yeah.
And she was queen of that.
Okay.
And I loved that.
Okay.
It's like, that's one thing I love about soccer, because I remember I tried playing basketball once and I'd foul out in like 10 minutes. And I was like, what is happening? Like, soccer is more, I don't know, you can get away with more,
Yeah.
which I liked.
Yeah. If I always said, at least when I play FIFA, I would always say, if you miss the ball, don't miss the man. Like, I'm getting the yellow card, red card.
That's like, and there's an art to it where it's like, if the ball's going past you, then that girl isn't.
I love that. So I want to shift this a little bit, and I'm super curious. With this podcast episode releasing, we'll be in the thick of a new year. And so for you, what goals have you set out for this year?
You know, I feel like you hear this more and more and more, but like, I don't feel like I set goals as much as I do. Like, I pick a word for the year every year, and I've done this for lots of years. And my word for this year is brave. Like, be brave. My dad, right before he passed away, talked a lot about being brave. And I think that I tried my best to like be brave these last few years, but I just don't think I was like in a place where I was like kind of like, I was brave for that year, but not brave in the ways that I think I want to be.
What does being brave mean to you?
Doing the scary thing, emotionally, physically, with the goals that you set. Like, this is kind of a cliche quote, but I literally said it to one of my friends last night. It was like, if your goals don't scare you, they're not big enough. And I'm not always the best, I think, at being vulnerable emotionally. And so, yeah, just being brave that way. Like, I think it's kind of that when you get that inherent, like, oh, I don't want to do that, then making the active choice, like, oh, I'm going to do that anyways.
What is it that keeps you from being vulnerable?
You know, I'm sure if my therapist was sitting here, she'd be like, this and this and this and this. I think it's still something I'm figuring out, but I think it's just like fear of like people leaving or getting hurt. Like, sometimes when you're vulnerable, it feels like, oh, well, if this doesn't work out, then I'll be worse off because I was completely vulnerable, which obviously isn't the case. But I think that's, I don't know. I've always been the person that's like happy and fine and like a good time. And so I think it's hard for me to show that side. When my dad passed, I had a really hard time like telling people that I like wasn't okay. And I got myself in so much, like, I just think grief is a lifelong thing. I don't think it ever goes away, but I like really prolonged it because I had a really hard time accepting the fact that like I'm not okay. Like, I just feel like I always try to fix things.
Yeah.
Like, if it's like, oh, I'm not okay. Okay, how can I fix it?
Yeah.
And that's just not always how it works.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Well, thank you for sharing that.
What are your goals?
I think I set.
I feel like you shared
What are
one
my
with
goals?
me.
I wrote them down. I think my 3 for me.
Well, it was about dating.
Yes. 2026 is the year that I'm going to find my person. I think I want to be in the best physical, mental, and spiritual health or shape that I've been in my life. I think I want to attack those 3 areas and make sure that I'm at a place where I'm excelling and peaking and getting to the mountaintop. Then I think the last one is I want to be a better communicator. I'm the type of person that thinks 3 steps ahead, 10 steps ahead. But when I communicate with someone, I don't explain, let's do this because I know it's going to lead to this.
Yeah.
But I don't explain where it's going.
Interesting.
And so it kind of confuses people I don't understand. And then I get frustrated because I'm like, why don't you let's just do it?
Just read my mind, please.
Exactly. But if I take that time to then explain to them, here's the reasoning and everything, then they're like, okay, I'm in.
Yeah.
And so just learn to communicate better.
Cool. I love those.
So I kind of want to end this episode with a question, because you have interviewed a lot of amazing people and you've met a lot of amazing people. What is the best advice that you've ever heard?
I had a guest on a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about this concept. Maybe this is why it's the best advice, because it resonated with me. But we were talking about this concept of being brave. And they said this quote. They said, what would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail?
Ooh, I got to write that down.
Right? And it's stuck with me a lot. Like, if you knew that what you were going to do, be it your business, your relationship, your physical health, if you knew that you were going to do really well at it, what would you do?
I love that. What would you attempt to do if you could not fail? Wow.
Isn't that a good one?
I can't imagine the things I would do.
Right?
In that situation.
Right? And I think that can tie back to faith and hope and everything, where we are our own biggest roadblock so often, because who wants to fail?
Yeah.
But what if you don't? What if it works out?
Yeah. What if? I always tell people, I'll meet kids who say, well, I'm afraid to ask this girl out. And I'm saying, what if she says yes?
Yeah.
Like the worst thing she can say is no, and then you move on.
Exactly.
The world doesn't end. You're going to wake up tomorrow. I remember, this was years ago. It was the election. It was Trump versus Clinton. And I remember Obama gave a speech, and he said, no matter what we may differ in politics and everything, the sun is still going to rise in the morning. Yeah. So no matter who gets elected, guess what? It's going to be a new day tomorrow, and it's going to reset and everything. And I think that's the thing that we forget sometimes is life goes on.
Yeah. And
we may fail, we may succeed, we may be rejected, we may be accepted, but life continues.
Yeah. That's a beautiful truth, I think. And when you realize that and you don't let the discouragement and the fear stop you from doing things, I think that's when you start living the life that you dream and want to live.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy this conversation. So firstly, thank you for coming on my podcast. I would love people to be able to hear more about you, more from you. Where can they find your podcast?
Yeah, so it's just at 20-something podcast on Instagram. And then all platforms similar to you. It's Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all the things. But I think the best place is, Instagram.
What's the number one takeaway they'll get from your podcast?
We kind of already spoke on this, but the fact that your life doesn't look the way that you thought it would, okay, or the fact, the things that you're struggling with in your defining decade of your life, your 20s and 30s, can be the very things that empower you and propel you to live the life that you want to.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
This is great.
Thank you.
You're wonderful.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us on Man on the Mic. If this episode brought you value, share it with someone who needs it, and make sure you're subscribed. Man on the Mic is streaming on all platforms, so wherever you listen or watch, you can find us. I'm Jeff Mann. Grateful you're here, and we'll see you on the next episode.